Hello everyone, this is Mike Jenkins from Mike Jenkins Reviews, and I'm here to discuss Madam Web. Madam Web was recently released on Netflix after, let's just say, terrible performance at the box office, and it sounds like it's doing pretty well, which once things go streaming, people tend to give things more of a chance versus how things go at the box office, because a lot of people don't like going out to the movies because it can get quite expensive. So we'll see how Madam Web pans out as far as performance during streaming. But the Sony Spider-Man movie universe is not doing that great. And it started with Venom, which was, for all points and purposes, you could say that Venom was a pretty decent superhero movie. Strangely, it didn't feature Spider-Man at all. Venom 2 was not as good, but it was still a pretty decent superhero film. Tom Hardy does pretty well in the dual role, and I would give a lot of credit to him as far as carrying the movie. And then Carnage was the obvious follow-up to the first film. Then you get to Morbius, which took a huge dip. Jake Leto played the titular role, and it just reeked of a bad 90s superhero film. And it's like, okay, it is 2020 whatever. How the hell, after great success with the MCU, could you make such a bad superhero movie? Like, how could you screw it up? The next film in the live action Spider-Man universe. Now, up to this point, we're 3 films in with no Spider-Man. So what the hell are you doing, Sony? How are you screwing this up? It makes absolutely no sense how you could do a Spider-Man live action film universe and you keep not including Spider-Man. So you're working all these characters into this franchise and you're doing your damnedest to not include Spider-Man. Makes absolutely no sense. So we talked about Venom, Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, Morbius, and then the latest film in the series is Madam Web. And this is like the worst of the worst in so many ways. So you've created a film franchise using Spider-Man's characters, but you're not including Spider-Man in the universe. Now, part of the reasoning behind that is the MCU by Disney has Tom Holland playing Spider-Man in those movies. So there are 2 lines of Spider-Man films going on. You have the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or MCU, series of Spider-Man films. And so Tom Holland's Spider-Man is part of the Disney-owned Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sony owns the Spider-Man film rights, but loans them out to Disney so that Disney can use Spider-Man in its massive cinematic universe. What Disney has decided, or Kevin Feige, is that he doesn't want his Marvel Disney Spider-Man films to have any connection or interaction with the Sony Marvel Spider-Man films. So this has created an odd, sticky situation, no pun intended, where, yes, we have a bunch of Spider-Man characters in these Spider-Man related movies, but we're not going to have Spider-Man in them. Sony has gone on to produce an animated series of films, or at least it's 2 films right now, with a 3rd on the way, featuring Miles Morales as the title Spider-Man in those films. And those animated films have gone on to be hugely successful. But we're not going to be seeing Miles Morales anytime soon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe owned by Disney. And we're not going to be seeing him in the live action Sony Spider-Man universe. But at the same time, we're not going to see Spider-Man Peter Parker or Spider-Man Miles Morales or any other form of a Spider-Man in the Sony Spider-Man universe. Quite an odd series of choices. Quite an odd debacle that Sony has put themselves in. But a lot of it, I would say, is from greed. Sony doesn't want to give up the Spider-Man rights, refuses to sell the Spider-Man rights back to Disney, and they're just going to milk the rights for everything they can milk them for. But at the same time, they're making horrible choices and horrible films at the same time. So Venom, as we said, did pretty well. Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, did pretty well. Morbius, not so great, pretty much a bomb. And now we're at Madam Web, which is not a step in the right direction. It's even worse than Morbius. And so now you're in this situation where you have this film that features 4 Spider-Women. 4 Spider-Women with no connection to Peter Parker or Spider-Man. And you have a spider villain who strangely looks like a Spider-Man named Ezekiel, that has nothing to do with Spider-Man. All of these characters in the comics cross paths with Peter Parker and are in some way connected to Spider-Man in the comics, but because we can't have a Spider-Man in these live action films, we have to dance around that story element and produce a story without Spider-Man, which affects how these characters are expressed. And so you have this super odd story that does not feature Spider-Man, but kind of does. This film acts as a loose sequel. I won't spoil it, but there are loose connections to a Spider-Man or a Peter Parker, but it's not quite clear where we're going with this film. Madam Web performed so terribly at the box office that Sony has started dancing around their decisions on how they're going to proceed with their Spider-Verse, or live action Spider-Verse. The next film in the lineup was going to be Kraven, and then after that would be Venom 3. And that was going to be the lineup for the year. So Madam Web started off the year 2024, and it performed horribly. And this is on the heels of the bad performance of Morbius. And so we have 2 bombs in a row, and we're not quite sure how Kraven the Hunter is going to be received. And so we've pushed that film back. So the schedule was originally going to be Kraven the Hunter, and then we were going to end the year with Venom 3. Well, now that Morbius is bombed and Madam Web has bombed even worse than Morbius, well, let's move the schedule around. Let's put Venom 3 out and see if we can get an uptick, because Venom 3 is probably going to perform better than Kraven the Hunter. Let's give Venom 3 a chance, and then we'll put Kraven the Hunter out in the end. And if Kraven the Hunter bombs, then at least Venom 3 won't get pulled in the mud with it. So, don't know how Venom 3 is going to pan out. Don't know how Kraven the Hunter is going to pan out. But the terrible decision to do Spider-Man films without Spider-Man is clearly affecting the storytelling of the Sony Spider-Verse, Live Action Spider-Verse, and really puts a death nail in the future for the film franchise. When your films continue to trend downwards horribly, you can't have any expectations that any future films in that franchise are going to do well. Look at Warner Brothers DC and their reboot. So, Madam Web is performing well on Netflix. We will see how that pans out. This is the first week for that. And we will see how Venom 3 performs at the box office. We will see how Kraven the Hunter performs at the box office. And we will see if Sony at that point will be forced to make better negotiations with Disney Marvel, and hopefully sell the rights back to Disney Marvel and give Kevin Feige control over the film franchise for Spider-Man in full. Anyway, that's my rant about Madam Web. I did see it at the box office. Wasn't that impressed. It's a fun outing, B-movie outing at the movie theater, but not the best Spider-Man movie, not the best superhero movie, but it's mindless popcorn fun. Sony could do a lot better, and hopefully this is the lesson they need to learn to turn things around and do that. We will see. All right, rant over. Ta-ta for now.